Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about the DOF Reality 3 Degrees of Freedom Motion Simulator platform. This is the absolute ultimate immersion creating platform that I've ever gotten to experience in any kind of flight or racing simulation, and it is what you would quote unquote call budget friendly. We'll talk more about that in just a minute, but stick around guys because you're going to want to know all about this platform. It is amazing. Make sure if you guys can that you join us at Flight Sim Expo 2023. That's right, Overkill Simulations is going to be present this year, guys, at the Lone Star Museum in Houston, Texas. If you guys are interested in joining us there, be sure to check down the description below. There is a coupon code that can save you guys a bit of money using my personal reference to get you there. Again, that'll save you a bit of cash in your Flight Sim Expo 2023 experience. This is going to be June 23rd through the 25th of 2023. Again, in Houston, Texas, at the Lone Star Flight Museum. I went a few years ago in Las Vegas, and they are an absolute great time. There's some very, very informative and educational seminars to help better your flight simming experience, as well as a ton of developers of both hardware and software that you guys actually get to try out, essentially a try before you buy experience, as well as talking with the developers themselves and finding out what the products are all about. So again, guys, it's going to be Flight Sim Expo 2023 in Houston, Texas. I hope to see you guys all there. Don't forget to use my coupon code that you can find down in the description below. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides as well as any future guides that come along down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below, and thank you to all of my current subscribers. All right, you guys. So as we get into this, I want to talk about a few things. So first off, in no way, shape, or form is any of this scripted. It's actually all very unscripted and unedited. I am doing a voiceover with all of this footage as I go and sort of just hitting some talking points. Secondly, DOF Reality, I actually spoke to the developer on the phone before I agreed to even take this platform on. And they were very adamant that they want my opinions and thoughts to be completely honest and upfront. And so that's what you guys are going to get. Now, you're going to hear me use words like budget friendly and, cheaper, if you will. What I am referring to is in comparison to a lot of the competition. Okay, that is not to say that any of this is particularly cheap. It is just they are significantly below the price point of their competition. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to go through the assembly. We're going to go through the setup process, go through some of the software, and then we're going to talk about, obviously, the golden information, the overall experience, and who this might be for. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of everything I have experienced thus far, and we're just going to go at it from there. So first off, the assembly process, I'm not going to lie, was a little tedious. It took multiple YouTube videos from their site in order to put it together. So I will say that the installation process needs to be a bit refined as far as the documentation or videos that they want you to follow. And what I mean by that is they have many different platforms, many different configurations, and some of the videos just seem to sort of mix a little bit of that up. But we were able to obviously get it put together. Once I had it put together, going through the documentation to get the motors calibrated, ran into a few problems there, but again, finally got it all ironed out. It was probably total time of assembly and configuration, total hands-on time of about 10 hours, getting everything all done and ready to go between the old 9 to 5, having the family and all that good jazz. So 10 hours of actually physically being able to work on it to get it all up and running. By the way, a big shout out to Next Level Racing for donating the cockpit chair. The chair does not come with the pit, so that is something you guys will want to look into. Now, we'll be talking about price points and the website and all that good jazz towards the end of the video, guys, so stick around for that if you're interested in that. Now, let's go ahead and talk about who this is for. This is for someone who's truly looking to bring your immersion to the absolute next level performance. It's a game changer. Now, I have a triple monitor setup as well as virtual reality, and I will definitely say that virtual reality is where it shines. Having the 2D monitors that don't move with the platform doesn't quite give the same feeling. Now, when you are in VR, it's a whole different ballgame. And you guys are going to see some footage of that with Microsoft Flight Simulator in both a fixed wing aircraft and a helicopter. And the helicopter, oh boy, that's a ride. Now, as you guys can see, this one does both pitch, roll, and yaw. And all of these settings can be tweaked using the Sim Racing Studio software that you do get a license with the purchase of the platform itself. Now, again, we're going to talk about pricing later on as far as which platform to get, which platform this one is, and what the benefits are to the cost in comparison to some competition. I will not be listing any competition names, but I will tell you guys that they are significantly below the big names in competition for motion platforms. DOF Reality, I will say, was rather responsive and doing very, very well when I was troubleshooting some issues that I was having with the installation process. They did a really fantastic job of communicating with me and helping me work through some of the issues that I was experiencing with it. And that, for me, speaks volumes. I don't mind. They are a smaller company. They are definitely still developing their simulation platforms and their procedures and how to best serve their end users, being you or us, the customers. I don't mind any of those kind of hiccups as long as the customer service is on par, and they were very, very responsive to me. I was getting responses by both their Discord as well as via email. Even got an offer for a phone call if I needed one. So that was very reassuring for me. It took about 2 weeks for the product to get here. I believe it shipped from Poland, if I'm not mistaken. So transportation, when it showed up, it is heavy, guys. If you order them, mine came in 2 different boxes, and they are heavy. Probably total weight of, I would guess, somewhere in the area of 150, 200 pounds between the 2 boxes. So just keep that in mind if you guys do decide to go this particular route. Now, as far as the configuration, once it got it all up and running and testing, everything was pretty smooth sailing from there. Using the Sim Racing Studio, you can actually tweak the settings such as pitch, roll, response rate, response speed, smoothness as far as how well it calibrates, shifting or calibrates, how well it, I should say, shifts from, for example, far right to far left. And it's really going to depend on what kind of simulation you're doing. Now, I have tested this in everything from a fixed wing aircraft such as the Piper from Just Flight up to the Got Friends Vertigo, which, mercy, that was a ride. And then again, using the helicopters. Now, the one thing that I will say that it does lack and you have to be ready for, now we do have a solution for this. It is in the mail. I should have something more for you guys on this particular next section right around early May. It's going to take a while to get here, but it has already been ordered, and that is motion compensation. Now, this is going to be specifically for VR users. You have to understand, for those of you who may not know, what motion compensation is essentially a device that tracks the movement of the simulator or the simulation platform and associates that with the VR headset. So, for example, if you're in Microsoft Flight Simulator flown in VR, you guys know that if you lean all the way out left or right, you can actually stick your head out of the window, or if you stand up, you're standing outside the cockpit. That's because the headset actually moves and the camera moves very strictly with the headset. So what happens is when you're in a motion simulator, right, is your body is literally leaning to the left or right while your camera position is changing. You're not moving with the 2D image inside the cockpit. So you will find in some of the video footage that I'm getting ready to show here, guys, that you'll see me resetting the screen pretty frequently. It's really not too bad. It's going to look more annoying on screen than it really is inside the cockpit. Most of the time, it really didn't even faze me. I just reset it for your benefit as the viewers. And plus, recording in VR is still something that's very, very new to me. Now, motion compensation, again, is a device, and there's a couple different ways you can do it. There's even third-party softwares that can be done, and you can use a VR hand controller by mounting it to your sim rig, but that can be quite a pain in the butt to set up. The device that I purchased was only about $33, so I didn't worry about it. I just ordered it. Again, in a few weeks, hopefully we'll have a new video on this and showing you guys the difference. Now, let's go ahead and get into the good stuff, guys. Let's talk about, I'm going to tell you guys what I love about it, and then towards the end, before we get into pricing, I'll tell you guys what I dislike about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So first off, as you guys have already seen with some of the footage here, it's an incredible platform. Now I want to talk about a few points that you guys can already tell here. First off, the chair is awfully close to the rudder pedals. Now I can move it back a little bit. What actually I did was sit the chair up, so I lifted the back end up to be more sitting up straight. I don't like leaning back very far, so that's just an adjustment in the chair that I need to make to find my comfortable spot. You guys can see I do have the triple monitor set up there. I have done this in 2D as well. The right monitor is unplugged to make space for the VR headset, so don't worry about that. But I have tried it in all triple monitors, and it's still cool. Okay, make no mistake, it's still cool. And definitely still a big game changer in comparison to non-motion simulation. But VR is definitely where you're going to go. If you want to make the dive into motion simulation, I would absolutely recommend virtual reality first, because that's really where it's going to shine. It literally takes you out of your office, out of your house, and puts you wherever you're flying to. As far as the overall comfort of the flight, it really depends on what you do. I meant to show it in this video. I don't think I grabbed one in this particular clip, but for example, takeoffs and rolls, they're cool, they're fun, you definitely feel it. It took a while before I really started getting living on the edge, if you will, and started pushing the limits to see what this thing could handle. And I'll tell you what scared the crap out of me, you guys, was a stall. This was in a Cessna 172. I've noticed the Piper doesn't really have much of a stall. I mean, the nose drops, but she recovers so fast, it wasn't really much of anything to talk home about. Now, I did a stall in the Cessna 172, and the first time I did it, it literally scared the crap out of me to the point where I was laughing and giggling so much that I literally went back up and did it again just to feel it again. It was an incredible experience that I never thought I would feel from my own home. As far as the roll and pitch and yaw behavior, it's so on point once you get it tweaked to your comfort zone and where you really want it. One of the really cool things that I really enjoy about it is if you set the settings just right, is for the first time, one of my biggest complaints about, any kind of simulation was that, it's hard to tell, for example, if you start climbing or if you start descending and you don't realize it and you're trying to look around and enjoy the scenery, that's at least one of my struggle points, was always maintaining altitude when I'm trying to just look around and enjoy myself. Now, obviously minor 200, 300 foot differences, you don't really feel it in the chair, but anything more than that, you start getting to the 500, 600, 1,000 foot, variances, and you start to feel it, and you start to realize, whoa, hey, the plane's doing something. So it's a really eye-opening experience for simulation, and totally changes the game in a way that I never thought. I didn't think that it was going to do what it did. One of the things that, just so you guys are aware, that I will also be adding to this is I actually have the butt kicker in my closet right now. I have the version 2, the latest one that's available on Amazon, and I'm going to be attaching that to the chair. And so we're going to be doing another review with the butt kicker installed as well. And we're also going to be using the Next Level Racing haptic feedback seat and playing around with that and adding even more immersion to it, so we could really turn this into something cool, but that's later down the road. As far as the behavior of the chair, it's absolutely awesome in the aspects that it does things that you're not expecting to do. You can even turn on engine feedback, meaning as the engine changes pitch and whatnot, you can actually get minor vibrations in the chair. The motors will sort of rattle the chair based on engine behavior. Here's an example here, guys, of what we were talking about earlier. As I turn my head, notice that the viewpoint has moved more towards the center of the cockpit as the chair turns. Notice that my camera has changed. Even when I look straight, that's when you're going to see it. When I look straight towards the propeller, notice where the camera viewpoint is. It's way over to the right now towards the center of the airplane. That's the lack of motion compensation. And right there, I centered the camera. So just wanted to point out an example of why we were here. Some of the other really cool things that really took me by surprise that I wasn't anticipating was things like turbulence. Turbulence is something that is tracked. It is telemetry that is delivered to the chair, especially if you get into severe turbulence. I don't think I show it in this video, but in an earlier video I went up north, up there in front of the propeller there, towards those mountains, and did some flying around, and they are very, very windy mountains. It's a very notorious area to get the living you-know-what kicked out of you when you fly near them in a smaller aircraft. Even in one of the bigger planes, as you're leaving Tucson, in real life, you'll start, especially if it's like midday, you'll start getting really bumped around, kicked around. And it modeled that very, very well. Like, it caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it. and the plane started bouncing right on key. The pitch axis and the roll axis, I think of the two of them, the roll axis is definitely the more significant of the two that you're going to feel more frequently. The other thing that I will say is, in my personal opinion, I would say smaller aircraft are, again, where this shines. I did fly it around in the Flybywire A320, just sort of checking it out. The Flybywire is a little bit harder for me to do right now. Again, I'm not used to flying Microsoft Flight Simulator in virtual reality, so I'm definitely not optimized, if you will. There's a lot of settings that I need to dive into, and you guys probably can see it in the recording. The recording quality isn't what you guys are used to seeing on my channel, I'm sure. So that's going to be something that I have to look into further in order to really take advantage of this. The fly-by-wire and the larger aircraft, again, as they roll, you're definitely going to feel it. Now, one of the things that I will say that's really cool about the airliners, or even like something like anything with an autopilot where you enter in the flight plan, is I do recommend, if you're going to do that and you have a motion pit, put yourself in the back seat sometime, go over back to a wing view and just let the aircraft do its thing. And it's a whole different experience because you're not expecting the turn. The thing about when you're in the cockpit is you can see the turn and you can feel it happening. When you let the autopilot take control and you're just sort of sitting in the back and it starts to turn, again, it was another one of those ones that was like, whoa. It was pretty cool. And then the other thing that I did in the fly-by-wire was I did an auto land, and that was another interesting experience. I put myself in an auto land and then put myself back in a wing view and just let it do its thing. And again, at that time, I wasn't set up to record in virtual reality. I didn't have everything squared away yet, so unfortunately, I don't have that footage. But now let's go ahead and move on to the helicopter. Actually, we'll watch the landing because I do want to show you guys something cool. The other cool thing about the motion sim is braking. As you have G-forces, when you apply your wheel brakes that are going to push you forward, the simulator, the motion pit, actually models that. And you guys will see that here in just a second as we come down for a landing here at Ryan Field. It was a very, very interesting experience the first time, and you can feel that even while you're taxiing. Now, there's two different variants of the chair. You have the 2 degrees of freedom and you have 3 degrees of freedom. I specifically requested the 3 degrees of freedom because I felt like the yaw was a very critical point for flight simulation, and I'm really glad I did, because you guys are going to see really where that shines, especially as we get into the helicopter here in just a minute. You guys will be able to see what that was all about, because it was quite an impressive experience. So let's go ahead and we'll just sort of sit tight here and watch the landing, and just pay attention. You guys can watch when I depress the toe brakes there with my gorgeous socks on. Notice the chair yawing as well as I'm sliding across the runway. And then we applied the toe brakes. You guys see the chair leaned forward. And as we start relieving that brake pressure, it goes back. There it is, coming forward again. It's a really, really cool and eye-opening experience when it happens. But let's go ahead and move over to the helicopter, guys, because this was a terrifying ride. This was absolutely terrifying. Okay, so in this next segment here, guys, I intentionally put myself in an absolutely horrible position. We're in a nasty storm at Tucson International in the Cohen 206. And watch the chair, you guys. Just watch the chair in relationship to the motion of the aircraft. Now, my FPS is garbage right now, guys. I'm burning about 26 FPS. Again, I am not optimized for VR. It's only in the last couple of days that I've really started pushing it. So I got a lot of things I still got to tweak, so don't worry about the lagging and things like that. That's something that I'll address. Just pay attention to the chair. Again, I intentionally put myself in a horrible situation here. There's a couple points we get into literally zero visibility. But just watch the motion of the chair as the helicopter begins to move. You have your yaw, you have pitch, we have roll. I mean, this thing gets all over the place. When the cool thing, if you want to figure out how bad of a helicopter pilot you really are, like, I thought I was okay at it. I really did, until I got into a motion pit and realized how god awful I am at this. It was brutal. It really does give you that strong sense of less is more in a helicopter. If you put too much input in it, you feel it now, which is an incredible experience. I would say for flight simulation, this is the most intensive experience that I have flown thus far. And by the way, guys, I have tested this out in DCS World as well. That will be a separate video later on. Again, that one gets a little bit more interesting. We'll talk about that later. But let me just look at what's happening here. Again, obviously horrible weather. Everything is just garbage right now for me. I'm not maintaining control of this helicopter at all. Yeah, I'll let you guys just watch the ride for a minute. Here I am just desperately trying to maintain this aircraft, looking for any kind of visual point. And at this point, guys, the feeling was so intense, and the immersion was so intense. You guys, at this point, you guys can't really see it, but I'm starting to sweat. My heart is racing. I'm really starting to feel worried. I mean, I've never ever been scared in or in a flight simulator before. And I wasn't quote unquote scared, like, I gotta get out of it. It was one of those, like, when I hit something, this is gonna be intense. And I will tell you, when you crash in the motion pit, it knocks you around. So it can definitely be quite the impressive experience. So at this point here, I'm finally getting some sort of visual bearing back. Like, I literally turned myself around. I was watching the compass and just turned myself back towards the south, and was like, I'll find the airport at some point. And literally, this is why I just immediately, once I saw the airport, I'm like, I'm landing it. Didn't even worry about the parking spot. I just picked a spot that I knew that I could get it down to and started bringing it down. It was a very, very blood-rushing experience flying this helicopter. And even without the nasty weather, the helicopters are very intense. I actually had my father try it out over the weekend, and he had a wild ride himself with it. They are a whole different ballgame in motion simulation, because the other thing is, as the aircraft's moving, so's the cyclic, right? Your hand is moving. So it gives you just yet another piece of real-world immersion, that if your body jerks, well, you might jerk the cyclic while you move around with it. So it's not perfect, right? There are still things that I would love to add later on, and they have tons of upgrades for it, from dampeners to lift axis, which will actually vertically and horizontally change the position of the chair. So, for example, sort of make it feel like you're in an elevator, if you will. You can add things like that on. They have tons of different add-ons and enhancement packs that can be purchased for these platforms as well. So at this point, guys, I'm going to show you guys the landing here, because I want you guys to see how the chair sort of thunks. But another thing is landing gears. As your landing gear drops and raises, you can set the chair up in a way where it will clunk clunk, as your gear comes up or goes down, whatever it may be, and you can increase that intensity. But here we are, like a piano. There it is. Boom. And you guys just watch the face. It was a ride. It was definitely a ride, you guys. But now let's go ahead and talk about some pros and cons of the chair. We've talked about a lot of the pros. Let's talk about some of the cons. Okay, so now real quick on the cons, guys. I actually don't have many. I truly don't. My biggest one would be the installation or assembly process. Again, I think it needs to be a bit more refined, in my personal opinion. I think there needs to be very dedicated videos to each kit and configuration that's sold. Maybe break it down by piece. I don't know. And then secondly is getting in and out of it. Now, I'm a big guy, both vertically and horizontally, as you guys saw. So some of that is on me. Some of it may be on the design. I would like to see the distance between the chair and the rudder pedals be able to extend out a little bit further. Now, I'm sure some of that has to do with center of gravity. Now, the software that comes with it actually does a really good job with balancing it, that I have found, at least for me. But as you add more peripherals and more pieces of equipment to it, you have to be considerate of balance. That is something that you have to watch very, very closely. And then calibrating the motors was a bit confusing to do. So the troubleshooting, the assembly, ease of access, so getting in and out of it, and then the distance between seat and rudder pedals for me was a little short, but that's something that can be adjusted later. The other thing that I would want to point out to you guys is they do have a maximum supported weight limit of 330 pounds. So keep that in mind based on your weight, size, weight of your peripherals, and think about what you are wanting to expand it to. So with that in mind, those are really my only complaints to it, you guys. Everything else on it, I think, is absolutely phenomenal. It's not loud. The power box is very, very quiet. I like that it has the safety switches on it. I like that the power box switch is very easily manipulated and turned off. That will actually, you know what? That might be one more thing. The other thing that I don't like is when it is turned off, it sort of partially sinks down to the bottom is what I have found. It sort of slowly just, falls forward, the pitch and roll axis. So for example, the rudder pedals that you guys saw will eventually sink to the floor. And it's nothing crazy or anything like that. The only thing I don't like is that when it's powered off, and it does make sense, but when it's powered off, it can be freely moved. Now, they are very, very clear in their instructions, and I was really, really happy to see this. In the very first paragraph of their instructions, it flat out says, do not operate around children, and animals, things like that, anyone who can get stuck underneath it or put their little hands under it. It says it right in the very first paragraph. That is a perfect place for a warning like that, and that is something that I do have concern about. Now, they do offer different covers. I would like to see some sort of just, tin coverings with magnets on them, maybe. That would just keep fingers from being able to even get in there to begin with. So that's my only, what I would consider a safety concern. But other than that, you guys, that's about the most of the complaints that I can give to this thing. Now let's go ahead and talk about that budget, quote unquote, friendly price points that we were talking about earlier. All right, you guys, so here it is, the website, DOF Reality, and this is the platform I have here. Now, remember that the chair does not come with it. So the chair was bought had to be purchased completely separate. Again, very grateful for Next Level Racing for donating that to me so I could do this review. Now, here's the catch. So you guys are going to see this price point, okay? Now, I was talking about budget. I was talking about cheaper. I'm not going to mention names. I am going to stick to that, but you guys are more than welcome to go to Google and simply look up motion simulator platforms, and you guys will see a very significant increase in most of the competition. And I mean significant, anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 more for something that does the same thing. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's what I was talking about earlier in the beginning of the video when we were talking about price point being budget friendly. It's something that I'm sure many of us would have to save for. That doesn't change anything. Now, here is, for example, guys, a seat mover. You have 2 axes. This will be just roll and pitch. And here it is, 2 degrees of freedom. And you guys can see, again, significantly cheaper. Now we're starting to come down quite a bit. Let's look for the H2. So the H2 is going to be very similar to what you guys just saw up there. It's going to have more roll, a bit more movement, going to be able to hold more peripherals. The difference between this one and what I have is this one, for example, does not have the yaw. So you are not going to slide from left to right. And that, for me, again, was a critical point in flight simulation, in my opinion. So that's why I requested that. But again, I mean, this is not bad. When you guys look at the cost of a 4090 or a 4080 graphics card, or for example, I have the Pimax 8KX as my virtual headset. That was a $1,200 headset when I got it. When you guys start looking at that and you put the price points together and you think about how much you've spent on all of your different flight controls and you start adding things up, these are savable points is what I like about these. These are price points that you can reasonably get to. So the biggest thing here, guys, is that these price points are, yes, they're still expensive hardware, but they're within reach. And again, I encourage you guys to do some research on some other competition, and you guys will see what I'm talking about. Now, they do have far more advanced, far more expensive kits that can be purchased, and they go much higher depending on what you're going with. But again, look at the level of motion that gets included the higher you go. So it really depends on what you're looking for. And I can tell you right now, there's a couple things that I would like to get for this one that I have here. Like I said, the dampers and maybe a few other knickknacks here and there. And the nice thing is that you can upgrade a lot of these kits. Okay, so you can really, like for example, here's the H2 to the H3 that can be purchased to get you that yaw axis, and it just keeps going up from there depending on what you're looking for. But again, here's the H3 to the H6. But again, look at, you have far more feel or points of motion. The surge, the sway, and the heave are added. So again, that's where you're going to get that true, like in a helicopter, this would be absolutely insane. So it really depends on what you're going for. I love the room of expansion. I love the way that they are trying to create sort of a start from the bottom and you can work your way up kind of system. It really does make things much more supportable, if you will. I am really, really grateful for DOF Reality and reaching out to the channel. This was an experience that I never even had honestly contemplated because of the price point of all the ones that I had looked at in the past. And then just getting this opportunity was quite fantastic. And I loved the fact that, you know, when I was talking to the developer on the phone, how adamant he was to be honest and be real and, you know, just literally say what my true thoughts are. So I hope you guys have found this video useful. There will be many more videos in which I will be discussing the H3 here. We'll be doing primarily recording using this from now on, at least for the near future. We have the motion compensation that has been ordered. It's on its way. It's going to take a few weeks to get here. We're looking at about 3 weeks until I have that installed. As far as DCS World, I will be doing a separate video on it. Things get far more intense when you start getting into fighter aircraft and things like that. And again, especially with the lack of motion compensation, that definitely does become quite the headache, you know, trying to use a dogfight or maneuvering at high speeds without the motion compensation does get quite frustrating. So for this system in its current form, I would say if you are a racing fanatic, if you are even American Truck Simulator, something like that, or if you just like the general aviation aspect of Microsoft Flight Simulator, X-Plane, etc., this is definitely a perfect system to look into. And again, giving you the license to the Sim Racing Studio and allowing you to tweak it to your comfort and your liking is another very, very big bonus. So as always, guys, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you guys enjoyed the content. Ring the bell for notifications of future content. It certainly helps me out. Let me know what your thoughts are on motion simulation down below, guys. And as always, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.